But anyway, let's move on. So I got something that I got. I got to get this off my chest. I have
All
to.
right.
And this is gonna come like out of left field. And when I say out of left field, I'm almost like I'm literally talking out of left field. Barry Bonds is not going to the Hall of Fame again. And so, the Hall of Fame inductions just took place. I mean, not inductions. They finalized the this year's Hall of
Mm-hmm.
Fame class. Mariano Rivera, Edgar Martinez. Uh, the other ones are slipping me right now. It's not my point. Um, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens are still being penalized for their involvement or alleged involvement in the steroid era. And I really think that keeping those guys, especially Barry, I mean, both, keeping those guys out of the Hall of Fame to me diminishes the value of being in the Hall of Fame. Um, People can say whatever they want about this person was on this or this person was on that. Barry Bonds was the greatest player in what many can might consider a flawed era. He was the greatest player in what many might consider a flawed era. It's not the only flawed era in baseball history. It's not. There are other eras where, in the 70s and 80s, where amphetamine use was rampant. They had amphetamines in the clubhouse. People would go and just take a handful out of them and pop them that way. There were other times where there was the live ball era, I mean the dead ball era. All these different types of things where they could have impacted the statistics or performance, right? But players from those eras are not penalized when it comes to going being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I think that it is just a travesty. And it's really baseball to me wants and needs to move past the steroid era. They need to let it go. They need to get to a point where they put it behind them. But the longer you continue to penalize and point this spotlight of negativity on the people who are the faces of the era, the longer you keep it in the conversation, the longer you keep people talking about it in that way. Put him in the Hall of Fame. Put Mark McGuire in the Hall of Fame. Put Sammy Sosa in the Hall of Fame. Put Roger Clemens in the Hall of Fame. All of these people who clearly deserve to be there, put them in and just move on. First and foremost, like I've always said, these were not the only people in the world on steroids, if they were even on it. Like there's so much gray area, and I always like to maintain, my journalistic posture and not saying you were on this, you were on
I
that.
mean, I understand that, but let's be real. Barry Bonds, and this is one of the things that I think that matters for me, was a player for a long time,
Hmm.
and then the steroid era hit, and all of a sudden his head grew to the size of an air conditioner,
Hmm.
and here's my beef with this whole thing. And I must preface this with saying that all awards or rewards that are voted for and not accomplished, I put less importance on personally. I think what you do is what you do, and given the power to other people's opinions of what you do, should be a little more limited than what it is. Championships and hitting records and stolen bases, all that stuff is what you did, and that should matter. It shouldn't need this stamp of approval of the Hall of Fame to legitimize you. That having been, and this is overall, same thing with MVP. People don't get to tell you whether or not you were MVP. You either were MVP or you weren't. The telling, I think, is something that the sports media runs with a little too hard. But that's a different subject for another day. For the sake of this discussion, Barry Bonds took steroids in the quote unquote steroid era to compete with other people who were getting a blind eye turned towards them taking steroids because people were hitting all these home runs, and guys were getting all jacked up on the creatines and the deer antler juice, rubbing on their inner thighs and whatever else they was doing. And when everybody else is allowed to do it, it's institutional. And when it goes on for as long as it did, you guys profited from it. See, it would be different if it was, say, hypothetically, John Jones, who every time he did something bad, they kicked him out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, a guy with your off the out of the octagon issues in our Hall of Fame. And we punished you every step of the way. We gave you redemption when you deserved it, but it was too many times for the Hall of Fame. That would be different. Everybody in the steroid era, they let it rock. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And if you let it rock, you were complicit. The dirt is on your hands, just like theirs. And don't come to me with this moral high ground nonsense when it's time to start handing out fancy coats and having ceremonies and putting pictures of people in buildings.
Yeah.
No, no, you don't get to make all this money off of Barry Bonds' quote unquote dirty play and Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa's dirty play and then turn around and be like, how dare they? It is the height of hypocrisy. But again, I think the very Hall of Fame premise is a bit of, give us the power to tell you how good you were, when that's not the ultimate measure of it.
Yeah, I honestly think that there I've always thought that there was a place. And this kind of goes into the MVP kind of thing. I've always thought that there was a place for something that you simply qualify for based off of accomplishment, that was a measure or a recognition of your greatness. Um, in addition to or in replacement of the traditional Hall of Fame or awards concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I am a firm believer that the MOP, the most outstanding player, is quite often different than the MVP, the most valuable player. The most valuable player to me is the guy who his team could not do without, like, and because of him, this team was able to accomplish this certain amount of success, and without him on the team, they would not have been anywhere close to that, right? But then there's a most outstanding player who I think, if you just look at this person from a statistical standpoint, nobody was better than this guy. Maybe he played on the team with two other guys who were just as good. So maybe he wasn't quite as valuable to his team because he had two other guys that were just as good. But it doesn't mean that he wasn't better than this other guy who was more valuable to his team. So I think that that's the case for that. And even for, like, from a Hall of Fame concept, I think that if there were a certain, like, benchmark, right,
Yeah,
and says that if you do this, you're in the Hall of Fame, or
I
you're
totally agree
in,
with you.
or
If
if
it
you're
wasn't subjective, I would
right.
agree with you. Yeah.
It's like, so if you are a part of two or more championship teams, and you have a career batting average of this, or anywhere from this to this, you have this amount of home runs, this
Mm-hmm.
amount of RBIs, or this amount of this, or maybe if there's just a general
If
statistic that
if it
kind
was
of melds
basically
all of that stuff together,
like a
you know,
career PER,
yes, a career
right?
PER.
Yeah,
And
where it
if
was an equation. Yeah.
you have an equation that says your career PER says you are this. And if you are hit this number, then you're in. No matter what you did,
Mm-hmm.
you could have pushed the owner down some steps, but regardless, this is what you did, and this puts you in this category. I think that there are people who would go for that.
Yeah,
Y-
I'm
You
with you
know,
because it's the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Perfect,
yes,
right?
yes,
So, and for the people watching the show, we just solved the Hall of Fame forever. Y'all could go ahead and tag everybody in this link.
yeah,
Y'all ever have a Hall of Fame discussion? We fixed it.
we fixed it.
Come up with an equation, take it out of the hands of opinion havers
Yes,
of the day. Because at the end of the day, the reason I said it's the Hall of Fame and not the Hall of Perfect, Barry Bonds' story is a valuable part of baseball history, for the
it is.
good, for the great, and the infamous.
Hmm.
And that story needs to be in there. And I would prefer it if the Hall of Fame wasn't some shrine where they pretended that guys were only
Perfect.
their best. Right. Get in there and talk about, oh yeah, this guy used to put Vaseline on the ball before he pitched. This
Or
guy was in that.
just Ty Cobb was a racist. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. But this
just
guy was before black people was allowed, and he was always on the front line saying, "Don't let him in." Like
yeah, exactly.
it's baseball history. That doesn't mean he wasn't a great player.
It doesn't mean he wasn't a great player. Anybody that tells you Ty Cobb wasn't a great player is lying. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So, I mean, it just is what it is, man. And it doesn't, like you said, I like that. It doesn't need to be the Hall of Perfect. It just needs to
Hmm.
be, this is the, I mean, I think boxing, which is crazy, I think boxing does it the best. I
Yeah.
mean, even though they still have some voting, you have to vote guys in, which they had a conversation, and this might even be a whole separate. We coming up with a bunch of segments today, but I had a conversation with the same friend that I was mentioning earlier. I said, is Adrian Broner a Hall of Famer? I said, Adrian Broner is a 4-division world champion. I said, if
Hmm.
I named you the other fighters in the world who were 4-division world champions, you'd be like, whoa, man. So he's in some pretty significant company. Now, when you think about Adrian Broner, you don't think Hall of Famer at all.
Hmm.
But here's the thing: depending on what your metric was, what your equation was, would he qualify? So that's something that would be interesting to explore for sure. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting thing. But yeah, I think we both agree Barry Bonds should absolutely be in the Hall of Fame, or at least in some institution that recognizes the greatest players that ever lived.
Yeah.
So I mean, honestly, if you were to create an equation, um Barry might he,
He might
he
be the
come
first one in.
he might come close to having the highest metric. The only
Right.
thing I think that would probably hold him back is the lack of World Series rings.
Yeah, but we
Be-
all understand that baseball is it has a different value than basketball, or
Yeah, yeah,
position wise in football. Football as a quarterback, your championships matter a whole lot.
yeah,
But as a wide receiver, like if you're
yeah.
if your
It is.
defense sucked, you could put up you
Yeah,
could have the most yards every year and
yeah.
still
And
never make it
I
look good up
mean,
on the other end.
the quarterback, it matters, but like you said, it's different in basketball.
Oh
If
yeah,
you're
well it's quarterback. I would say basketball is the most.
Yes,
Well, yeah, obviously individual sports is the most. So like tennis, golf is the most.
right,
Team sports, basketball is like at the top,
yes,
hockey way up there, right? Then after how you get to football, it's like, well, first there's the quarterback,
right. And
then
then
there's the
really nobody
coaches,
else. Yeah, the coaches.
and
I think
the
the coaches
players you dealt
carry
with what you
more.
dealt with.
The coaches carry more than the quarterback.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say
Yeah,
so.
from a championship standpoint, So yeah, that's what it is. But I appreciate everybody watching this time. I want to reiterate, guys, this is going to be the last episode of At Me Bro on this channel. Moving forward, it will be on its own channel. I am really excited about that. I think it's going to be fun, cool, the whole nine. So I can't wait. I can't wait to start it off next
I have a
week.
question for the people.
Yes.
Will bits still appear on this channel and other channels? And will those bits also be on the main channel, or will they only be on the other channels they appear on?
On my thought, all of the bits will be only on the new channel,
Okay.
only on At Me Bro. That's
Cool.
it. That's my thought. I don't know. I think it's just easier for everybody if they can
Hmm.
just see everything on one spot. So that's the plan. So as usual, I appreciate you all watching. God bless you and peace.
How could I be weak? I'm rather unique.